Citizens Media.
There's a web. Maybe you can do it there. Just the very first one should be me.
Thank you. The top thing. Here, hold on.
It might be.
Facebook app? Good friend.
We're about to start this evening's forum. Asking everyone to take their seats. Moving close. Good evening. I'm Vivian Cox-Fraser, President and CEO of the Urban League of Essex County. On behalf of a coalition of civil rights organizations in Essex County, we'd like to welcome you to tonight's event. On behalf, I'd like to tell you a little about our convening groups. We have the Essex County College Student Government Organization, the NAACPs of Newark, Irvington, Maplewood, and Oranges, the Urban League of Essex County, the People Organizations for Progress, and the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, State of New Jersey, and the Ozil Grand Chapter Order of the Eastern Star of New Jersey. Now, both my parents were members of my father was a member of Pythagoras Lodge in D.C., and my mother was a member of Eastern Star, so they hold a great place in my heart, and we're so proud to be part of this coalition this evening. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Aisha Steplight Johnson to give remarks on behalf of Essex County College. Now, Dr. Johnson is the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences of Essex County College. She has over 20 years experience, and she is passionate about helping colleges help diverse students achieve academic success. I'd like to ask Dr. Steplight Johnson to come to the stage to give remarks on behalf of the college. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I am Dr. Stephanie Aisha Steplight Johnson. I am the Dean of Liberal Arts at Essex County College. To the gubernatorial candidates and to the multiple organizations who arranged this forum, I welcome you to our campus. I thank Professor Linda Carter from our Division of Social Sciences for being the moderator for tonight's discussion. This event certainly fits with our vision and mission as an institution of higher education. And here at Essex County College, our vision is to be a beacon for education and knowledge and to attract people who seek a better life through education. We transform lives, we broaden learning and empower students to achieve their full potential. Our college community and graduates are change agents and leaders who contribute to the health, vitality, and advancement of our society. And our mission statement reads that Essex County College is an open access community college that serves the diverse needs of students through comprehensive educational programs, training, and continuing education. Essex County College is dedicated to academic excellence and the success of its students. Tonight's forum provides an opportunity for the community to exercise their civic responsibility to be engaged about how a democratic government works and to think critically about who will best represent our interests as the next governor of New Jersey. May you all find this evening informative as you consider all of the characteristics, the values, the positions, and platforms presented this evening. Let us reflect upon the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, which tell us that we are free, we are citizens, and we have the right to vote. I believe that an elected official is a public servant. I wish you well in listening tonight and asking questions as you determine who will serve you, the people of New Jersey, the best.
To this august body, I bid you all a good evening. Good evening. At this time, it is my distinct honor to introduce the sum and present to you all the young lady who will be serving as the moderator for tonight's forum. She is no stranger to this institution as she served as the Director of Paralegal Studies, and she is an associate professor here at Essex County Community College. If you look at her resume, it is quite extensive but very impressive. But if there's one thing that resonates with this young lady, is that she is a servant leader for the community of North New Jersey and abroad. So at this time, I'm going to ask everyone to put your hands together for our moderator, Linda V. McDonald Carter, Esquire.
Everybody will, basically, the ground rules are that you'll have 2 minutes to open, 1 minute to answer questions. Because these are in the front, I'm going to walk around and touch people on the shoulder to let you know that it's your turn. The first set of questions will be from the participating organizations. The second set of questions will come from the audience. And I have American government students that I teach. We're really doing a class right now, so my American government students, raise your hands, because they will be coming around. If you want to ask a question, they will bring an index card to you. You'll complete the index card in handwriting that is legible, that I can read. And the index card will go to Deborah Smith Gregory, and then she'll hand it to me. Right, so the cards will be handed to me. Now, for purposes of questions, particularly for the audience, sometimes questions are similar, so I'm not trying to not answer your questions. I just may have to synthesize them because I may have several people who are asking the similar or same questions. I do this to make sure that people who are in the audience get time, because it's been the practice that sometimes in some forums or debates, the audience doesn't have as much time as they should get. So that's one of the reasons why I do this. Okay. So the first, I'm going to introduce the candidates. All right, let's start with Jim Johnson. Is he here?
Not yet.
Okay. Bill Brennan.
I am Bill Brennan, and I am the most qualified candidate for governor on this stage tonight, based upon the life's work that I've accomplished over the past 30 years. Speaking truth to power is the most important quality that a candidate for governor can have in these troubled times of alternate facts and alternate reality and oppression and suppression and outright corruption. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my most recent and notable activity was bringing criminal charges against Chris Christie for his role in the Bridgegate case. bachelor's degree and a law degree, and I use my law degree as a public servant because, as the moderator told us, the governor and an elected official is a public servant. We don't elect rulers in this country, we elect servants. And I'm here to serve you, not to rule you. Part of that service is making sure that we speak truth to power on a regular basis and hold government officials accountable. We are losing our control over our own government. All of the agencies that we trust to serve as checks and balances have been captured by people who are interested in self-aggrandizing behavior and more power. And the self-serving nature of New Jersey government didn't just happen overnight. It's been going on for quite some time. So in the 90s, when I was bringing a complaint against a sitting judge and had him removed, in 2000, when I brought a complaint against a legislature that was drafted and adopted by the Joint Committee of Legislative Ethics, or whether it's criminal charges, I understand how it is not working. I understand that the system is broken. I understand that we need to empower the people and stop dividing our country. And for those reasons, I want to serve you as governor of the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I am the most qualified candidate for governor in this state or any state. And I am because I've sponsored the most powerful and important environmental protection laws in the country. And indeed, I am in court right now challenging Governor Christie's sellout to ExxonMobil of a $9.2 billion damage claim for $225 million, and I'm going to win that case. It's not like I haven't sued before. I established the first Superfund in the nation, New Jersey Superfund, to clean up toxic dump sites. And when the petrochemical industry refused to pay into it because the federal government established their Superfund and they said it preempted me, I sued them and I won that case, Lesniak versus the United States, and I'm going to overturn that ridiculous settlement, and we're going to get billions in return from that, for that. 1 minute remaining, oh my God. I'm the only candidate who has won a landmark women's rights case, Ponta versus Ponta, which went beyond Roe versus Wade and said that a woman has a right to choose any medical procedure over her body, and it's her right and no one else's right. I've also defended mass incarceration in New Jersey. One of the biggest problems in our country is that we have 25% of the world's population and 5% of the world's prisoners, but through my elimination of mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses that were targeting minority members, I've reduced the prison population in New Jersey for drug offenses by 50%. And just to sum up for a bit, I've been also a champion of LGBT rights. I was the original sponsor with Senator Weinberg of marriage equality, when it only got 13 of 25 Democratic votes. I persisted until marriage equality was the law of the land and state of New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Mark Zinna. I'm a candidate for governor in the primary. Why am I the most qualified candidate for governor? Well, I am the council president in Tenafly. I have been serving as acting mayor now for about 6 months. I'm the one candidate who has both legislative and executive experience delivering public service to the members of my community. I'm in this race because I'm very disappointed, like I imagine most people in this room, about the results of last year's election. And the Democratic and Republican leadership at the national and state levels, our leadership, have let us down. They have forgotten about the people of this state, and I'm in this race because it's the people of the state that matter. My entire campaign is about social justice and pushing it forward as priority number one. I believe health care is a fundamental human right, and we need a single-payer health care system in this state. I've only got 1 minute left. Criminal justice reform. We need to stop putting people in jail on a regular basis just because we're so used to doing it. I believe marijuana should be fully legalized. We should not be criminalizing poverty under any circumstances. We need to be rebuilding our communities, not beating our communities down. You know, we fought a civil war in this country. We fought the Second World War. We fought a civil rights war because they were the right thing to do. We didn't do them because money was the priority. We did it because it was right. And when in doubt, we have to do what's right, and that's why I'm in this race for the people of the state. Mark Zinner. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Very good. Thank you very much. My name is John Wisniewski, and I'm also a candidate for governor. The middle class is the heart and soul of New Jersey, and the middle class in New Jersey has been under siege for at least the last 8 years, and that's why I'm running for governor. I'm a Main Street lawyer, not a Wall Street banker. I have 21 years of experience in the General Assembly. And the combination of my experience on Main Street and my experience in the General Assembly will make me the most qualified person to be governor of the state of New Jersey. I've used my time in the General Assembly to speak up for the middle class, to be a sponsor of the $15 an hour minimum wage legislation, to be a co-prime sponsor of marriage equality, to work on progressive issues that have a real impact on the lives of so many people in the state of New Jersey. But we have to recognize that elections are about choices. They're about being able to elect leaders who will make a transformative difference for the state of New Jersey. Because so much of the politics and the policy that we have is really about transactional politics. Whether it was a disastrous gas tax vote last year that gave the richest 3,500 people in New Jersey a $1 billion tax cut while everybody else got to pay a higher gas tax. Whether it was standing up alone against former Governor John Corzine, our last Goldman Sachs governor, when he tried to sell the Parkway and Turnpike and give everybody an 800% towing increase, or whether it was me, alone, starting the Bridgegate investigation that held Chris Christie accountable, that stopped him from being a candidate for President of the United States, and that transformed our politics here in New Jersey. New Jersey needs a leader who has experience, but is not afraid to stand up to the established forces that exist in this state. I've shown I'm able to do that, and as governor, I will continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, first question. Listen carefully, because this sort of sets the tone. Many of the young folks do not know him because they do not teach about him in the public schools. Some of the older folks have forgotten about him, and some of you have never heard of him. However, the reaction to him while he was alive has led to some of the conditions that we in this community experience today. Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was the leader of the most well-known church, perhaps second only to the Vatican in Rome, Italy, elected in 1947 by the citizens of Harlem, New York. He became the most effective elected official in the history of the United States. He moved more legislation that became law for all Americans than any other elected official. Because of the diversity of thought he brought to his elected position, he led the effort to create, among other things, the minimum wage for all Americans and financial aid for American college students that were not wealthy enough to pay for a college education or prepare academically to make straight A's to qualify for academic scholarships. Congressperson Powell also served as the chair of the U.S. House of Representatives House and Ways Means Committee, charged with determining how all American tax dollars would be prioritized and appropriated throughout the entire United States. This chairmanship positioned him to be the fourth in line for president, potentially the first black president in the early 1950s. Reverend Congressman Powell was probably the only elected official in the history of the United States willing to die for his constituents. How would your term, should you become elected governor as the most powerful governor in the country, compared to Congressman Powell's service to his constituency? I'm going to start with Mr. Wisniewski.
I'm glad you started with a very easy question. I appreciate it very much. My first term and my second term as governor would not in any way measure up to the extraordinary legacy of Congressman Powell. Just can't. But I will try very hard to live up to the model that he set. Because one of the things that we have seen far too frequently in American politics, and especially in New Jersey politics, are elected leaders whose first goal, their second goal, and their third goal is re-election. We need to have elected leaders like Congressman Powell, whose first goal and last goal are the people who sent them to office. And so one of the things that I believe is terribly, terribly wrong is how we treat education. We have to fund education fully. We can't denigrate teachers. We need to make sure that we're investing in our schools because that's our next generation. We have to make sure that we have invested in our public transportation system because we understand that so many people depend to get to school and to get to work on our public transportation system. And we see today that we can't get them there. We have to make sure that we have a $15 an hour minimum wage that brings people up to a standard of living that we expect in the wealthiest state, in the wealthiest nation the world has ever seen. Am I over time? Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Zena.
Thank you.
So, thank you for the question. I also could not hope to make the accomplishments that Congressman Powell could do, but I can certainly use his example. And I started off by talking about this. When in doubt, you do what's right, and you do what's in the best interest of the people, whether it's fighting for a minimum wage to fighting for a right minimum wage where everyone can afford to feed their families and house themselves at a certain level. I was talking to a gentleman before we got started today, and we were talking about the cities and what's my plan for the cities. My plan for the cities is to rebuild our cities brick by brick, much like we used the Works Projects, it worked the WPA and the CCC during the Great Depression. We have to look at our neighbors and help them help themselves in every way possible, and we need to focus on rebuilding our communities no matter what it takes, and it's not about money. And that's how I would hope to measure up in the small way that I could.
Thank you, Mr. Lester.
One of the things I would do to emulate Congressman Powell was to change the culture of corrections in our society. 8 years ago, 2:30 in the morning, I woke up at my home in Elizabeth with two guys standing over my bed, Antoine Neal and Bernard Kinney. First words I heard were from Antoine Neal. He said, "Shoot him." And then Bernard Kinney said something that has stayed with me to this very day. He said, "Stay cool, we're not going to hurt you. We're good people. We're just in a bad place right now." He didn't say we're not bad people, he said we're good people, we're just in a bad place. They were strung out on crack cocaine, they needed another fix, took my money, didn't harm me, went down the street and got high again. I went and I testified on their behalf. I testified on their behalf to get them into drug treatment instead of going into prison. And I did that so they wouldn't be standing over anyone else's bed years later. So I would reform our criminal justice system by providing more treatment for addicts and less prison for people who are in a bad place. They're just in a bad place, but they're good people.
Mr. Brennan.
Adam Clayton Powell is an icon in this country, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I can't measure up, because the dreams that I have for the state of New Jersey are big dreams, and they include making us, through a synergistic solution that solves a number of problems, the first state in the nation to rely entirely on renewable energy for its electricity. And in doing so, the green economy, the infrastructure that is necessary to meet that goal will create jobs and will lift up the poorest among us and the middle class. And I also intend on restructuring our criminal justice system to end the war on drugs that has resulted in an incarceration nation that is targeting African Americans and Latinos and other minorities disproportionately for profit. Whether it's corrections companies of America making profit, or whether it's the prison industrial complex itself that's working on contracts. If I can accomplish those two goals, and as part of a comprehensive program to bring New Jersey into the 21st century, then I feel that at some level I have measured up.
Okay. I'm going to start with this question. Mr. Brennan, it has been noted that people of color, but particularly black people, in many cases Puerto Ricans in America, feel that their votes are taken for granted by the noted and demonstrated that Democrats, particularly those seeking the New Jersey gubernatorial position, the most powerful gubernatorial position in the entire country, cannot win elections without a strong and large voter turnout in the specific cities of North, East Orange, Irvington, Orange, and other similar and primarily poor urban areas. In other words, when there's a tie between votes from the majority population of New Jersey for the Republican and Democratic gubernatorial candidates, this urban population determines the outcome of the elections for the position of governor. Not to expect more attention and resources than any other demographic population in the state, but what can these predominantly Black and Latino and poor communities of people, not individuals, expect from you if you're elected the next governor of New Jersey?
Jobs, economic equality, social justice, and here's how we're going to get there. When I legalize marijuana, when we legalize marijuana or cannabis as an industry in the state of New Jersey, we will create jobs that have to remain within the borders. In other words, because it's illegal at a federal level, every one of these jobs will be $15 an hour minimum wage jobs. The environmental platform, if you produce a component for renewable energy, whether it's a wind turbine or a solar panel or a geothermal heat pump, and you build it in New Jersey, and you install it in New Jersey, and you generate that electricity in New Jersey, all of the electricity that you generate will have to be purchased from utility companies at fair market retail value. It will create jobs, it will stimulate the economy, because if you give a job to somebody who needs one, if you give a raise to somebody who's making minimum wage, that money goes directly into the economy. And I would set up urban enterprise, use the existing urban enterprise zones so that all this economic activity is stimulated in the areas where it's needed most.
Mr. Leslie.
I would focus on education. We have one of the best education systems in the nation. By the way, the biggest mistake Christie has made is to demonize our teachers. Because teachers need to be respected, and it's difficult for them to teach when they're not respected. We have one of the best, but we have the biggest gap between our best performing schools and our worst performing schools. And what we do not focus on is the biggest need in low-income areas. And that is the time when a child is most able to learn how to learn. And that is from not pre-K, but prenatal. Prenatal to 3 years old. So I would invest in wraparound community schools that provide health care and nutritional care for that pregnant mother, and provide nutritional care and health care and tutoring services for that baby, so that that family learns how, that child learns how to be educated before they even get to 3 years old. Because without that help, they can't make it. And education is the cornerstone of success in our society.
Mr. Zenna.
Thank you. So part of the original question is about are voters or groups of voters neglected, and what would I do about that? So the direct answer to that question is absolutely yes. There are entire groups of voters that are neglected around this state. We have some of the cities in our states that have been in difficult situations for 50 years, and nothing from our elected officials, from the legislature, or from the governors of either party, no, there are no innocent people there in the parties, have addressed it. So I can go down a list of policy positions and things I would do, but I'm kind of going back to my issue is I would pay attention to the needs of our cities, because I need you to get elected. I can't get elected without the people in this room. And the folks on Wall Street, they can take care of themselves. The folks in extremely affluent communities, they can take care of themselves. I don't need their votes. I need the votes of the people in this community. Thank you.
Just call me Wiz, that's all. Okay. It's a lot simpler. I use it myself because I can't spell it either. But what we need to do is change the political system that runs New Jersey. We have people who are taken for granted because we have political leaders that we allow to take people for granted. We have a political system this year, this primary, that is up for sale. And we need to stop that. Because if those voices and those faces are going to count, we can't put the election up for sale. We can't put it up to the highest bidder. And that's what's happening. So the first thing I would do is change our political process. Limit the amount of money that's allowed into elections. And also limit the influence of party bosses who dictate who you get to vote for. And then we need to take that power to make sure that we are providing livable minimum wage, that we are reforming our criminal justice system, that we are legalizing and decriminalizing marijuana, and providing people an opportunity to get on with their lives and pardon those people who have suffered sentences for what amounts to a social crime. Thank you.
We're going to start with you. How do we make you accountable for the promises you make today?
Hold the mic up to you.
Thank you. How do we make you accountable for the promises you make today? For instance, would you mandate Civics 101 be returned to the academic curriculums in poor and urban traditional public school districts in which civics does not currently exist, and why?
What a sad state of affairs it is that we are talking about civics class so that people understand our very democracy. But the reality is that goes part and parcel with what I've been talking about in investing in public education. We have a thing called the PARCC test. The PARCC test takes 15 days a year out of the educational curriculum so that students learn how to take a test and don't learn civics. That's got to stop. How you hold me accountable is I'm going to be a governor with an open door. I'm going to be a governor that's going to be available to the press. I'm going to be a governor that's going to be out in the streets. And I want to hear what people have to say about how New Jersey is functioning under my leadership, and I want to take the corrective actions that the people of the state of New Jersey want me to take by listening to them. That is a change in how this state has been governed.
Thank you. Well, in both my executive and legislative governing roles now, it is pure democracy. I meet with my constituents every 2 weeks. I have committee meetings. I take their phone calls. They have my cell number. I am there for them. That's what I am used to doing, talking to the people that I'm there working for. I would do the same thing as your governor. And one of the things I would recommend as your governor is stop voting for incumbents and expecting a different result. That really is the responsibility of all of us, everyone up here and everyone in this room. We have to hold our leaders responsible. Look, we all have a disdain for the United States Congress, but we all love our individual Congress people. And so that's a real problem. We need to have term limitations for Congress people, for people in the state legislature. That's how we start to hold people accountable. Because when we move people out of office and bring new people in, they start to get the message about whether we like what they're doing or not. Thank you.
I would hold every elected official accountable by bringing the public into government, into major positions. I would require at least 2 members from advocacy groups to sit on major boards like the Port Authority, like NJ Transit, like the Turnpike Highway Authority that rolls over the Parkway and the Turnpike. By having 2 members and with an ability to make a motion and a second without it being tabled, we'll have watchdogs, and they won't be recommended by me or any other senator. They'll be recommended by advocacy groups, student groups, many of the organizations that are sponsoring today. If we do that, and that's why I'm running for governor, because we need to restructure and reform government so that the people have a voice in it. And that's how to hold all politicians accountable, not just me.
Thank you. Mr. Berman?
The question asked about civics in school, and it's deplorable that we don't have civics being taught anymore. And what's even worse is that I take my civic duty very seriously, and I've been denigrated by the governor of this state for being a civic-minded individual. So, in no uncertain terms would I insist that people understand not only what their rights are, but what their responsibilities are. We're asked to do 2 things in this country: vote and register for the draft, pay our taxes. That's it. Those are the only duties that we really have. And those of us who engage in our civic duty are often harassed, retaliated against, and abused by those in authority. So what can you do to understand that I'm going to follow through on my word? Well, I come to you from the heart. I'm not leveraged by anybody. Nobody's bought me, nobody's paid me. I've spent $3,000 in this campaign from donations from people that know me and that want nothing from me. I owe nobody anything, nobody has any leverage on me, and I don't tend to operate by getting leverage on other people. So that's why you can count on me to follow through, just as I've always done my entire life.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with you, Mr. Brown, is what structural changes would you initiate to the voting process that would encourage and allow more people to vote, ensure fairness, and account for reliability of the results?
Well, the first thing I would do is point out the problem. I live in Lily White, Wayne, New Jersey, and when I go to vote, there's 3 people waiting to help me vote and no line. And I look at the news and I see in Newark and Patterson and Camden and other communities of color where you have to wait in line for over an hour to vote. So I'm going to abolish that system entirely. I'm going to set up a system where your ballot is automatically mailed to your home. You fill out that ballot in your home and you mail it back in the self-addressed stamped envelope that you were provided. That will replace these machines that are subject to tampering with no paper ballot, and there will be a record of your vote. All of the voting can take place over the course of a month. You don't have to stand online in the heat or the cold. Everybody gets a ballot and everybody gets to vote. And that will take care of all of the problems that you just posed in that question.
Thank you. Mr. Lesniak, stop writing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just got reprimanded for writing under this. So anyway, first of all, I sponsored vote by mail. I've also sponsored same-day registration. I also think that we should have extended voting time for voters as well. And also I believe that ex-offenders should have the right to vote too. They should not be held back in any way, shape, or form when given a second chance. They should be able to vote since they've done their time. They should be treated as respectable citizens just as everyone else. And I think we need to, again, if we do what I said, what I will do, and that is bring the public into government. Government will, the people will have a more input and say in government, and therefore the whole entire grassroots of America and New Jersey will expand, and that's how we'll expand the voting base and bring more people into the process.
Oh, you made it tough this time. Mr. Bennett.
So several things I would do. The first thing I would do is strip all 21 county bosses of all their power to control who gets on the ballot immediately. I think that is fundamentally wrong. We have 21 people who can dictate who gets the party line. That needs to end. We need to have open primaries in this state. I would make all gubernatorial elections in this state purely financed through public financing. I don't believe that anyone should be allowed to make a contribution to a political campaign unless they are actually a human being eligible to vote. So in other words, no party chairs, no party organizations, no corporations should be controlling our election. And this isn't a First Amendment right. It's not limiting anyone's free speech whatsoever. I would set an upper limit on what could be spent on gubernatorial campaigns, and I would return the process to the people deciding who's going to represent them and not the wealthy oligarchs.
Thank you. So let's start by having same-day voter registration. You wake up in the morning, you want to vote, you go vote, you register right there at the polls. Let's make sure that we have extended voting so that if you want to go and vote in a machine, it's not just an election day, but for a week or two before, so that you can actually go to the polls and cast votes like you can in other states. Let's give everybody an equal opportunity to exercise the franchise. Let's make sure that ex-offenders all get the right to franchise, that they can actually cast their votes, because it's important that all voices are heard in deciding how government operates. As Margaret said and others said, and I've said before, let's end the political pay-to-play system in which a candidate can literally acquire 21 county shares and buy and acquire the line and get a leg up on everybody else. But let's also not forget this. Let's make sure that we're encouraging good candidates to run. When you have a political system that shuts people down and shuts people out, you don't have a choice. And without a choice, elections don't matter.
We're going to start on the side. There's 5 categories of questions, so we're going to try to get through them as soon as possible. One is education, housing, immigration, federal budget, state services, economic development, if we can. So starting on this side with education, do you believe there should be a moratorium on charter school expansion?
Yes, I believe there should be a moratorium on charter school expansion because it takes money out of our public education system, and we do not have enough money in our public education system. We don't have any loose change to spare to take it out.
Yes, there should be a moratorium. I do not support charter schools. It is a slippery slope that could result to us returning to a situation from 150 years ago where everyone had to pay for education. If you didn't have the cash, you simply didn't get educated. I'm a supporter of public schools and not of charter schools.
Well, I think we're all in agreement on that. The biggest problem I see with charter schools is that they take away from the schools from which the children come from. And when those schools lose that money, their operating expenses don't go down. So who's hurt by the charter schools are the children left behind. And oftentimes, if not all the times, you get adverse selection. You get the parent, you do not get the parents who didn't get the prenatal care that I was talking about. You get other parents who are more involved, and therefore the children, they need more resources. With charter schools, they're getting less resources. So I would have a moratorium on charter schools. I would not allow a charter school to be funded unless the school from which those children are coming from get the same amount of money that they had before.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan.
I don't like the term moratorium because you can lift the moratorium and let it creep back in under another administration. I would go a step further and make it a constitutional directive that public funds can't go to anything other than a public school. The public school system has been raided. It is the mantra of privatization at the hands of people who just want to monetize everything. Whether it's the prisons, whether it's the schools, whether it's medical, whether it's, there's just anything followed by industrial complex. And now they have an education industrial complex that's built up around standardized testing. So if you want to draw from the best and brightest of our public schools and open your own charter school, they have a way to do that. It's called private school with tuition, but you don't do that with public money, ever.
We're just joined by Mr. Johnson, and so he knows what the question is, so he can answer.
First of all, I apologize for being late. I had a schedule conflict, and I came here as fast as I can. And this answer will be delivered a little bit out of breath because I gave it all I got. As said, I've long been a proponent of and recently an inheritor of public school education, and I stand in strong support of our public schools. My mother's a teacher. My sister was a teacher. 2 of my children are teachers in public schools. And so I believe that there ought to be a pause. There are some useful lessons. Charter schools were started with lessons with a view towards actually establishing lessons that would transfer to public schools. That hasn't happened to the degree it should. That should happen. I believe that in some cases, I would not call for an all-out ban on charter schools, but we need to make sure that they don't have an impact on inequality, which many of them do. They don't have an impact on the funding for our current schools, which many of them do. And they don't have an impact on segregation, which many of them do.
You weren't here for the rules. The rules are 1 minute. So you get to the next question, and we'll go down from there. So what is your position of the PARC test, P-A-R-C, testing, Common Core standards?
I think the PARC test should be ended, and that it does not serve the function that it probably should. There's no question that there needs to be feedback mechanisms for teachers about their students, but hinging both feedback methods for students and teacher evaluations on PARC is not appropriate, and it should be ended. I was just talking to one of my cousins, again, another teacher, who talked about she teaches in a challenged school district, and the idea that her evaluation is going to be the same as someone in a school district that has a tremendous amount of resources with kids that aren't facing the same sort of challenges is not right and unfair, and it ought to end. And as a parent, I voted with my feet. My daughter did not take the PARCC test.
Yes, the PARCC test is part of the educational industrial complex that is being built up around our students as a way to milk resources from the public school system and divert them to private enterprise. Now, I'm not opposed to standardized testing to get a baseline, but I don't want it to be used for evaluations. And if I were governor of New Jersey, I would restrict standardized testing to the first week of the school year so that it's out of the way in the beginning and it doesn't eat up class time by teachers who are trying to teach to a test instead of teaching to their criteria or the curriculum. And I am not an educator, and I wouldn't presume to come in and dictate to education professionals how they should do their job. As a firefighter, nobody told me to come out and how to put fires out, and I don't think the governor should be telling a teacher how to educate people in her classroom or his classroom. These resources that we are spending on standardized tests are a bust-out Sopranos-style theft of resources. It is all about the money and not about the kids.
Sure. Well, I think we have to let teachers teach and respect teachers as the professionals that they are. One of the best school systems in the country, in the world is Finland. And Finland first of all, the teachers are held in the highest respect, the highest professional respect of any other profession in the country. And as a result of that, the teachers decide how they teach in their classroom, and they get peer review within their school building, and nobody wants to be held behind by a teacher who is not performing because it reflects upon them. So if we give our teachers the respect and the dignity and the freedom to learn how to teach, our students will do a lot better. Let teachers teach.
Thank you, Mr. Zinner.
Thank you. So I think the PARCC tests are a disgraceful waste of time. I have my two youngest children, one's in middle school, one's in high school, and when their testing time came around, they had two options from my wife and I would either opt out of them or not stress about it and take the test, but don't concern yourself with it because in the future they'll be gone. And on the school system in general, I'm a firm believer that our school systems should be run by the principals and not the superintendents of the Board of Elections. The superintendents of the schools. And I would change that entire system and put it upside down so that the superintendents and their groups were basically administrative support functions to the principals and let the principals run the schools and the teachers teach.
Once upon a time, we had standardized testing. I remember when I was in grade school, we took standardized tests. I think the most instruction was to use a sharpened number 2 pencil to make sure you fully filled out the circle. Now we spend 15 days of an 183-day educational calendar to prepare students for PARCC. And it's become high stakes. It shouldn't be high stakes. It shouldn't be used to evaluate teacher performance. It shouldn't be used at all. And as governor, I would eliminate the PARCC test. But let's also recognize that some kind of evaluation is necessary to make sure we understand how children are progressing from year to year. I would want to listen to teachers. I would want to listen to professionals. Advise me about what's the best methodology to create a standardized test that just measures performance. It doesn't evaluate teachers, and it doesn't take any time away from the educational process, and it doesn't put billions of dollars in people's pockets.
Thank you. You're going to get your first question under housing.
Housing, okay.
What is your position on providing tax credit to build affordable housing under the qualified allocation plan?
Well, we have an affordable housing problem in the state of New Jersey. You can look around every community and see it, but the Supreme Court also just recently said New Jersey has failed to live up to its affordable housing obligation. The biggest problem we have is the way we traditionally provide affordable housing. We allow builders to build market rate units in order to put a small percentage of that aside as affordable units. I have a different plan to create a community land trust that would acquire the real estate so that the cost of constructing affordable housing is then just the buildings themselves. We can provide so much more affordable housing. We could avoid the problems that gentrification creates when you have to provide those market rate homes. We could satisfy the yearning that people have to have a roof over their head and a warm place in the winter a lot more efficiently by creating a community land trust.
Thank you. Mr. Senna, same question.
Couple of things I look at. One, our affordable housing process in Trenton is completely broken. Either the legislature or the past governors for 20, 30 years have done anything but neglect it. And my community, we have two sets of lawyers we've hired. One to negotiate how many affordable housing units we need to build in our town, and the other lawyer is right now in a lawsuit because we're trying to build affordable housing, and the Fair Share Group is stopping us because of their crazy requirements. So there's a real disconnect going on in Trenton. Now, one of the things, the way to make houses more affordable is to change the way we tax ourselves. Right now, 2/3 of our property tax goes towards schools. I would change that system. So rather than paying property tax for schooling, we should be paying for our schools through an income tax-based system, which is much fairer for couples who are starting off on life. And then our grandparents who want to stay in New Jersey can afford to pay their property taxes because it's paid as a percentage of their income and not an arbitrary tax on their residence.
Thank you. Mr. Lesniak.
Well, I've had a little trouble with Governor Christie on this one. I passed an affordable housing law that he vetoed. 3 times I passed legislation that would convert the 65,000 foreclosed homes in New Jersey into affordable homes. I passed it once, he vetoed it, I passed it twice, and the third time he said, tell Lesniak the third time isn't a charm. So what we need is a governor who cares about affordable housing. And I've proven that I have. And I would have I already have sponsored a $650 million tax credit bill for affordable homes in neighborhoods. So, and when you provide affordable homes in a neighborhood, you attract businesses into that neighborhood. You attract other types of development into that neighborhood. So I've been the affordable housing champion in the state of New Jersey. The problem is Governor Christie has stood in the way. If I'm governor, I'll lead on affordable housing, just as I have, but been stymied by Governor Christie.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
We can no longer solve one problem at a time, and we have to think big. And part of my platform requires synergistic solutions to everything. And our affordable housing crisis can be met with massive spending by the state of New Jersey to create the housing and create jobs for low-income and middle-income people who are going to live in these houses. The trades, the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, all of those trades would have to accept apprentices from the neighborhoods in which we're going to build the houses. And instead of letting a developer take the profit out of the community and use up the resources of our state, the building will be built by the state of New Jersey, and then it will be sold at fair market value, the affordable fair market value, and it will be built by the people who are going to live in the community. It is time we solve more than one problem at a time. Get jobs for people in places where the houses are needed, and invest in the communities that need the investment most. Take the profit out of the developer's hands.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
This is a critical question. For 7 years, I was a housing monitor in Westchester, enforcing a HUD order, a court order, to make sure that they were building affordable housing for African Americans and for Hispanics, as well as the rest of the community. But those were the people that were being shut out. There are a couple of lessons that came from that 7 years of experience. When we're talking about housing and its impact and the lack of affordable housing, which is a crisis, we're also talking about an impact on education. We're talking about an impact on health. We're talking about something that is critical for families. So I would support using tax incentives to create affordable housing. I would also make sure that developers are not doing what they're doing now, which is paying their way out of building affordable housing, but instead actually building the housing. And I would make sure that this effort was integrated with the Department of Education, because many of our children are falling behind because of a lack of a solid and stable roof over their heads. And they're moving from school to school, and so they are integrated problems. And I would look at the health effects as well as the education effects and get the housing built.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. you have a plan to abate the escalation of home foreclosures throughout the state? And if you do, can you briefly, in 60 minutes, answer that?
Briefly in 60 minutes? I'm the wrong person. I am the wrong person to give 60 minutes to, okay? 60 seconds. Yes, I have a plan. I actually experienced, came close to losing my home when I was a child. This is an awful issue in New Jersey, is at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the nation on this. Our taxes are the highest, our rate of foreclosure are the highest. We need to fix it. I do have a plan that addresses fixing the relationship rather than balancing the relationship between the banks and the homeowners. When there's a foreclosure, two people have made what turns out to be a bad bet. The banking institution and the homeowner, but working it out falls on the backs of the homeowners. So I would put in place a mandatory mediation process. I would provide assistance to homeowners and make it possible for intervening groups, not-for-profits, to actually purchase the homes and reset the mortgage rates so that people are able to stay in their homes. One of the candidates actually would want to swap out, he's not here, want to swap out foreclosed homes for affordable housing. That doesn't give us a net gain, and frankly, it's heartless. I would not do that.
Thank you. Mr.
Well, when you're dealing with contract law and foreclosures, if you don't pay the bank, the situation right now requires that the bank foreclose. And I don't know what we can do to end that. But I do have a way to stop the tide of foreclosures, and that's property tax relief. And the way we get there, again, with synergistic solutions, is we solve more than one problem. Right now, I live in Passaic County. The Wayne Township school system is one of the best school systems in the state. The Paterson, New Jersey school system is one of the worst. Well, if we funded the education system at a state level and we set up county school boards, that would take 1/3 of your property tax bill away and make you less likely to fall into foreclosure. And it would allow Passaic County residents to choose among all of the schools in the county. And then it would do something to diversify our schools, it would end the segregation, and it would lift up everybody at the same time. Because I know that my community would do well to be diversified, and I know that the people in Paterson could do well to come to some of the better schools and have opportunity that they don't have.
Well, the candidate who is not here was on Goldman Sachs' management committee when they sold $60 billion worth of subprime loans. Many of them resulted in foreclosures and people getting kicked out of their homes. Goldman Sachs was fined $550 million by the SEC to avoid criminal prosecution and fined $6 billion to make the homeowners who were affected by their subprime loans whole. So I would put it on the backs of Wall Street and go after them for causing the foreclosure crisis and making them pay to pay down the loans of people whose homes are in jeopardy because of their actions.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Well, the Senator and I agree very much on this one. I would look at the predatory lending practices of the Goldman Sachs of the world and the Countrywide mortgages and make sure those sort of things never happen again and put in jail the people who commit that sort of economic crime against the citizens. But in terms of the current situation, I would put a moratorium on foreclosures and giving the homeowners, the occupants of those houses, time to work through the deals so that they can stay in their house long term. And again, we would stop all the predatory lending practices going forward so we don't have a repeat of the same mistakes.
Thank you very much. So the foreclosure crisis that we face is because of criminal conduct on the part of Wall Street and Goldman Sachs. And it's up to the state of New Jersey to stand behind its citizens and provide those citizens who are being unfairly pushed out of their homes by these predatory practices with the kind of legal aid and the legal assistance they need to fight the big banks. That's number one. Number two, we have over something like 50,000 they call zombie foreclosures, homes that have so much money owed on them, but the market is not strong enough to be able to sell them. And so they sit and they do nothing for anybody. I would take my concept of a community land trust, buy the land out from underneath it, make those homes now affordable so that people have the opportunity of home ownership, deed restrict them so that they are affordable homes forever, so that people have the opportunity to have quality housing, and we can solve two crises at once.
Thank you. How will you address affordable housing for citizens who rent?
Well, the same way. I've been talking, so let me just talk about this community land trust. There are two components when you have housing. There's the cost of the actual walls, the roof, the 2x4s, the foundation, but then there's the cost of the land underneath. If we take the cost of the land underneath these structures out of the equation by having it owned by a community land trust, we now make providing affordable housing so much easier because we've made it cheaper. And people that I've talked to in the housing industry say that they could deliver affordable housing much more easily if that land costs were taken out. And so we do two things. We provide greater opportunity for people to have an apartment or a home where they can live affordably, and we end the scourge of gentrification that results under the traditional formula of providing affordable housing.
Mr. Zinner?
Thank you. I would have a goal of wealth. One of the ways wealth is built in the middle class in this country, of course, is through home ownership. It is essential to that process, so we need to open that opportunity up to more people. And so I would look at any public housing in this state where people are renting. I would want to convert that to housing that those same individuals who are renting get to own that property over a period of time. They're paying rent, we need to convert that to ownership. And again, no gentrification. We would have deed restrictions that those properties can stay in their families. We can deed restrict it for generations so that people have an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their families over time. And that's how I would approach the rental and the opportunity to build wealth.
Mr. Leslie?
Well, I would sign the legislation that Governor Christie vetoed that I sponsored 3 times. The legislation that would transform foreclosed homes into affordable homes. And by that, whether they're by ownership or by rental, we will provide for a housing affordability that just does not exist today. And will also improve the entire neighborhood. A foreclosed home that's unoccupied brings down property values in the entire neighborhood. They're also an attraction for crime and vandalism. So I'll just sign my own bill, won't have Christie to worry about, and we'll have tens of thousands of more affordable homes in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
Remember earlier when I talked about taking the developers out of the equation and just building the homes? I mean, we've been batting this around back and forth for 20 years now with COA, and there is always going to be a group of people that don't want it in their backyard, and they have too much control, the developers. So these homes that we're going to build are going to be 2-family homes. And the low-income people who can afford to buy the home will also be able to have a tenant above them, except that that tenant's rent will be restricted so that they cannot gouge, they cannot force people out, they cannot harass. They will have to be the same housing standards that everybody else has to meet, and they will have some source of income upon which they can help to continue to maintain that low-income house that we provided for them. And you know something? Over time, if you don't have a heavy mortgage to pay and you have an income coming in, it's a moderate income from the rental, your family will have the same opportunity that other families have had, because it is not a talent issue. It is an opportunity issue, and I want to bring opportunity to people.
Okay, Mr. Johnson?
I want to focus on the issue which is rental property, and there are 2 sets of, to me, related issues. One is the creation of rental property, which the state is way behind, and we need to reprime that pump and get it moving forward, particularly preventing developers from buying their way out of creating affordable units. That's one set of concerns. One thing that hasn't been addressed is what landlords currently do. Some of them discriminate so that people can actually afford to rental property, but they are denied access to rental property. And so as governor, I would make sure that the laws against housing discrimination are strictly and strongly enforced. Other people separate and apart, other landlords separate and apart from that, drive people out to actually to redevelop the property. And the laws against that sort of discrimination would have to be enforced as well. And so I'd make sure that we had a renter's bill of rights that was strongly enforced to protect families that are not going to be in line to buy or invest in homes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll get the next question. This is under the area of immigration. What is your position on deputizing local law enforcement for immigration? Will you support the stand of sanctuary cities, the courts and religious institutions as safe havens for their residents? Why or why not? What I'm going to do is take a privilege, and we're going to, in order to get back on time, 45 seconds instead of a minute. Okay? Thank you.
A minute was short.
You can do it.
So here's what we have. Shortly after Trump was elected, after it became very clear what he intended to do with immigrants, I proposed the creation of, within the governors, within the administration, an immigration council that would protect cities that wanted to consider whether or not to become sanctuary cities and ensure that fundings were not taken away from those cities. That's one. There are families that are undergoing stress because of the risk, the threat of ICE that is very real, and I would make sure that our social agencies were actually organized to protect those families. That would be another part of the task force. The third thing is this. We know that the biggest factor in determining whether or not a family will be removed or someone stripped out of that family is legal counsel, and I would create an army of lawyers, volunteer and paid, to represent them.
Mr. Brennan.
Absolutely not. There will be no deputization of any law enforcement under the command of the Attorney General I appoint. In fact, any police officer who engages in conduct which would invite the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement agencies to come in and harass residents of this state would be subject to discipline. When you allow people to become victimized, because let's take, for example, a 10-year-old girl who has two parents who aren't from this country. She gets raped and her parents can't go to the police to report it for fear of being deported. Where are our values? What is wrong with this administration? So under my administration, if you set foot in a county courthouse to arrest somebody on immigration, you're going to get arrested by the county sheriff that is under the command of the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey.
Well, it's for our safety that we allow undocumented folks to feel free to come forward when they're victims of crimes or when they're witnesses of crimes. So the worst thing that we could possibly do for all of our safety is to cooperate with Donald Trump. My Attorney General will make sure in court or as a directive with a memo to all of our police departments and our county prosecutors that we will not cooperate with Trump's mass deportation, and we will enforce the laws so that undocumented immigrants would feel welcome and encouraged to come forward if they're victims of crime or if they're witnesses to a crime.
Thank you. Mr. Zinna?
Last month in my town, Tenafly, I'm proud to say I voted for and we passed an ordinance that made Tenafly a sanctuary city. I'm also proud to say my colleagues on the Board of Education passed a resolution that made the schools sanctuary schools, so no kindergartner or first grader is going to be asked for their papers when they show up. We're just going to educate them, and I would make the state of New Jersey a sanctuary state. And the strongest, we've heard these law of the land arguments from some of our residents who are against it, and my response to that was slavery used to be the law of the land also, and women not having a choice of what to do was also the law of the land that they could have been jailed for, and women weren't allowed to vote was the law of the land. And we changed the laws.
Thank you.
So a good friend of mine is a public defender in Middlesex County, and she was representing a man who had come forward because of a police issue in his neighborhood. He raised his hand and said something needs to be done. And in the process of talking to the police, it was discovered that he had an issue. He went to court, he pled guilty, he got probation, and as he walked out of the courtroom doors, ICE agents seized him and took him to Elizabeth. That makes our justice system less reliable, because people won't want to raise their hand and say help, they won't want to report crimes, they won't want to stand up for other people because they're afraid that they would be subject to jeopardy as well. I would not allow towns to be sanctuary towns because we have a sanctuary state. And I would not allow 278G agreements, and I would not allow our law enforcement to be part of anything that the federal government's trying to enforce.
The next question has to do with the federal budget. What can the state government do under your leadership to counter the expected upcoming drastic cuts by the federal government to social service programs?
Well, the first thing I would do as governor is I would summon our 12 members of Congress and our 2 U.S. senators, and I would say, when are we going to start articles of impeachment so that we can get a new president and get rid of this crazy system? But also, we would be in constant contact with our federal legislators to make sure that we are advocating for the money that's due New Jersey. But let's not be mistaken about this. It's also going to take a commitment by our leadership, by our legislature, to stand up for the values that we in New Jersey believe are important. And we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is. And if the Trump administration and the far right in Congress want to take away our rights and our liberties, we're not going to let them. We're going to stand up and we're going to fund those things that are important for the people of our state.
Prior to 1980, approximately, we had no income tax in this state, and the state was in pretty good shape fiscally. Well, for the past, whatever it is, 40 years or so, we've got an income tax, and the state's never been in worse shape than it ever has been. Where has all the money gone? We heard about the ExxonMobil, where we let loose, we gave up $8.5 billion worth of money because for political reasons we decided to give them a break out of the governor's office. We need to stop squandering the money we have. We need to make some hard choices. We need a single-payer healthcare system in this state and use our resources for it because it's falling apart the way it is in Washington right now. And we have to bite the bullet, make some hard choices, make the sacrifices we need to make for our people here in our state.
Well, first of all, Christie gave Exxon a break, but I'm going to stop him. And I'm in court, and we'll stop him, and I'll make Exxon pay more, a lot more. And I'm also going to stop this boondoggle of a State House renovation that has gone from $38 million to $500 million and now $700 million. And guess what? The bonds are being sold at 12%. So what we have to do, and I agree with other folks here on the panel, that we have to stop Christie from wasting money. We can save money and use that money for the programs that Donald Trump is going to cut. I'll also have a millionaire's tax, and I'll also close corporate tax loopholes that allow corporations to get away with $300 million a year that we'll bring back into the state.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
Trump and the Republicans like to disguise social services as tax cuts for wealthy people. That's their idea of social services. And every dollar that they cut at the federal level for the wealthiest residents of New Jersey, I'm going to match dollar for dollar with a tax increase at the state of New Jersey's level. So if you got a $30,000 tax cut from Donald Trump as part of his health care plan or his cut to social services, Bill Brennan is going to give you a $30,000 tax increase. You can't complain that your taxes went up because they didn't. But every dollar that we get in money that goes to Trenton stays here. We only get 50 cents back at the federal level. So let him come after us. Let him go and try and give rich people a tax cut. They will get a tax increase, and we will use that money right here in New Jersey to protect the weakest and most vulnerable among us.
Thank you.
Trump's budget proposals, like so many other things that he has done, it is cruel and it needs to be stopped. Last week I announced a plan, a Trump protection plan to protect our values and protect our people in the state. He is trenching on, he is assaulting under the criminal justice reform. He's trying to reverse the clock in so many areas, and he is really snatching the rug out under the most needy among us. I would look for additional funding within the state budget. I would impose the millionaire's tax. We have to then, if we're going to strip away medical support and medical care, we would have to work towards providing a replacement for that, including a single-payer health system. It will cost, and we'll have to make hard choices, but we cannot let this stand.
Thank you. Very good. Kept in time. All right. This is one of the first questions for the audience. First question. Start with Mr. Johnson. New Jersey already has some of the highest taxes in the country. How do you propose to fund your initiatives without increasing taxes?
We have among the highest taxes in the country, but we also have one of the most inefficient and sometimes reckless governments in the nation. Those things go hand in hand. We have lost more than $1 billion over Christie's years in federal funding. We need to get that restored. And some of the initiatives that I've proposed are things that I know we can't fund in the first year, but we have to work towards universal pre-K for all of our children. We can't simply ignore what we know our children need. And so that is a goal that I put and will be something that we work for as we make hard choices in our budgets.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
I absolutely cannot fund all the programs that I'm going to provide without raising taxes. But I'm not going to raise your taxes. I'm going to raise taxes on the people who've been getting tax cuts and tax cuts and tax cuts, and the idea that it's going to trickle down. It has never trickled down, and it's never going to. So if you're a millionaire and you make more than $750,000 a year, I am raising your taxes. If you're a corporation and you've been incentivized to move from one town to the next, I'm going to take that tax cut away from you. If you have just gotten out of paying an inheritance tax in the billions of dollars to the state of New Jersey, you're going to have to pay them. So in no uncertain terms is the free ride for rich people going to end. I am going to raise those taxes, and we are going to bring this country back to serving the middle class and the poor, and not the wealthy and the wealthy elite.
Thank you. Mr. Leslie?
We do waste billions of dollars in New Jersey, and Democrats are as responsible as Republicans. I'll just give you one example, the parole board. $120,000 a year jobs. Parole officers are oftentimes unqualified. They get health benefits and pensions. Retired judges can do the same job for $300 a day, do a better job, and they won't have to have pensions and health care because they already have it. That's just one example. Go to my website where we can save billions of dollars, transform that billions of dollars into programs that the people need, and not into political patronage that is happening right now.
Thank you. Mr. Zenna?
So we need to change the culture of corruption in our state. Biggest example, this particular election, the gubernatorial election, is for sale. There's receipts, there's checks written. It's all public. It's out there. That needs to stop. Atlantic City, just a particular example. Our leadership in our state, both Democratic and Republican leadership, managed to bankrupt a gambling operation. Right? We would have been better off with a Gambino or Don Corleone running Atlantic City. It would still be in business, right? But that speaks for itself. The State House is physically falling apart. It's got plywood on the windows. The concrete is collapsing, covered with plastic and tape. And it is a symbolism of what's been going on in Trenton, and that culture needs to stop.
We can all argue about taxation in New Jersey, but I know there's one group of people that are looking for relief, and those are homeowners. Those are the people that are in this room, the people who every day get up and go to work. And so I'm not going to feel sorry if we have to reinstitute the estate tax that only benefited 3,500 people. I'm not going to feel bad if we close corporate tax loopholes that'll raise $300 million. And I'm not going to feel bad or apologize for millionaire's tax that will help us fund education and provide property tax relief to the people of the state we need to give it to. Budgets are about priorities, tax cuts are about priorities, and tax increases are about priorities, and those are my priorities to make New Jersey a better state.
Okay, we start this question with you. The federal government has a working definition of middle class. However, the true picture of middle class home differs. If elected, how will you work to equalize the disparities within the middle class in New Jersey?
Well, that's what this campaign is about, isn't it? We have a guy from Wall Street versus people from the middle class, and that's what we can't allow to happen. So a couple of things real simple. We have to raise the minimum wage. That's going to put money in everybody's pocket. That's going to lift all boats. We need to make sure we're investing in public education. That's going to help our teachers. That's going to help with property tax. We need to invest in public transportation because too many people take too long to get to work and they get there late and they're very frustrated. We need to invest in our state, and that's how we're going to increase the capacity of our middle class to increase and improve their economic lot life.
Mr. Zimmer.
It's all about jobs, jobs, and more jobs. That's what we need. That's how we lift all the boats. One of the things I would embark on would be a transportation expansion project. I would want to bring the New York City subway system, the number 7 train, into New Jersey, the A train over the George Washington Bridge, and run it all the way to Patterson, so that, as an example, so that we can create job opportunities for 2 generations, the opportunities for transportation back and forth through New York, so that people have access to places of employment. And that is what we need to do. We need to invest for the future. We haven't had a new car manufacturing plant in this state in 25 years. I would pick one of our cities and want to build one right there.
It certainly is about jobs. I would, first of all, kill the 4 pipelines that are being proposed and make New Jersey fossil fuel free by 2050. If we allow these pipelines to be constructed, we'll be relying on fossil fuels for the next century. Solar, wind, technology, installation, creating thousands of jobs and fighting climate change at the same time. That's what I'll do.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
The question was about defining the middle class, and just for the record, I'm the only one on this stage who would get a raise by becoming governor of New Jersey. So I understand what the middle class is really about. And I've put forth a lot of comprehensive proposals on how to increase jobs, and some have been talked about here. But my renewable energy platform, by resurrecting the Atlantic Wind Energy Project, by putting the Clean Energy Program funding back into clean energy, by building a new Penn Station and Madison and Port Authority bus terminal on top of one another instead of being in 2 different locations. All of these things are designed with working people in mind, to put people to work. The apprenticeships in all of these trades unions for the building that we're going to put for affordable housing, it is something with the minimum wage that will raise all boats.
Mr. Johnson?
I grew up in a family that knew from struggle. And I mentioned before that we almost lost our home because, like many members of the middle class, however one defines it, we were a paycheck or 2 away from disaster. And that's one of the things that we focus on in the middle class. How do you deal with that? You deal with not only getting good jobs and making sure that people get a living wage of $15 an hour, but you also deal with affordable housing, which I have a plan to do. You deal with college affordability and vocational school affordability because a lot of middle class opportunities are being sucked up because of the high cost of college, and you're trying to give the next generation a step up. Make sure that there is opportunity for retooling as our industries change so that people, when the jobs move, we're able to move with them. That's the way I would address the problem.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan? Same question. Distracted by John. Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. So. Well, that's right. Guess the next question after me. What is your proposal to ensure affordable health care for all in New Jersey? And how do you propose ending homelessness in New Jersey? So, 45 seconds.
Okay. So with the second question, I've discussed already my approach for affordable housing. That's one of the mechanisms to deal with homelessness. But also we have to deal with some of the things that attach to homelessness, like having a plan which is related to health care for assisting families and individuals who are either suffering from addictions or suffering from mental disability. Because honestly, if you are in that stressful situation, if you don't start out having mental challenges or being subject to addiction, that is actually one of the ways that you end up there. And so I would incorporate in a health care plan support for mental health as well. If Trump is successful in ending the Affordable Care Act, then I would move our state towards single payer.
Okay, Mr. Brennan.
I'd love to be able to promise you single payer in the state of New Jersey in the next 6 years. Unfortunately, we have to fix our pension crisis, and I'm the only candidate on the stage who's identified the source of the resources available for fixing the pension. It's a $100 billion unfunded liability from a state that has a $35 billion budget annually. I'm the only candidate who's resolved that problem without raising taxes. All the resources that I intend to raise are defensive moves against the federal government for now. As I said, when they attack the Affordable Care Act and they give out a tax cut and call it health insurance, the proportionate tax increase is going to be used to protect the weakest and most vulnerable among us, who are always seem to be the ones with the targets on their back from wealthy Republicans in Washington, D.C. and Trenton.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Lesniak, same question.
Well, for universal health care, I'm going to adopt the Brennan plan. It's absolutely brilliant. If Trump is going to give money to the wealthy by taking away from health care coverage from the poor, whoever gets that additional money in New Jersey will use that to provide the health care coverage that's lost. And of course, homelessness, a lot depends on affordability. And we can also have tiny homes, by the way. We have to take a look at that. We can have tiny homes that provide for veterans and seniors and other homeless folks who can't even afford affordable housing. So tiny homes could be a part of that equation as well.
Thank you.
So I believe healthcare is a fundamental human right. We need a single-payer healthcare system in this state. No one in their right mind would ever create the mess that we now have in terms of our health insurance markets. We can afford to pay for it right now. We're spending about 19% of the GDP in this state from all sources on healthcare. A single-payer system like Denmark's, they've had it for 100 years. Cost about 11% to run it, so we have the resources. We need to reorganize how we spend our money and reprioritize it. In terms of housing and homelessness, in my borough, I have built affordable housing, working with organizations like United Way, and it has benefited the residents of our town and other towns, and I would continue that throughout the state.
Thank you.
I have been advocating for a single-payer healthcare system, and I have a plan on how to do it. We spend currently, every single year, about $55 billion paying our doctors, our physicians, our hospitals, our nursing homes, and the list goes on. However, when you add up the sum of money, our insurance premiums, and the amount of federal money that goes into the healthcare system, it's $62 to $63 billion. The difference is the savings that we could achieve in a single-payer healthcare system. We can deliver the same level of service with the same financial inputs, the premium dollars, the federal dollars, the state dollars, and have a better level of care. That's how we're going to do a single-payer healthcare system, and it's going to be job one. We see it's already started in New York State with the New York Assembly having voted for it, and we see legislation moving in California. We will be at an economic disadvantage if we don't adopt a single-payer healthcare system.
Thank you. The next questions, these are the last two questions. How do we get jobs for individuals who are unemployed that don't require extensive training or college degrees and pay a minimum wage?
Well, the first thing we have to do is do a minimum wage increase. And one of the first things I'll do, and the day I get sworn in, is send a message to the Speaker of the Assembly and the Senate President. Send me a bill in less than a week that raises the minimum wage to $15 an hour. At the same time, I'll sign an executive order for all state employees and state contractors to have a $15 an hour minimum wage. And the other thing we have to recognize is that we have resources like we're in right now. Essex County College, we have county colleges across the state that can be an efficient way of providing the kind of job training and job services that will help people get the next job that they need. We need to use that better by funding our college and our educational system better. That's how I'll provide jobs to the people of the state of New Jersey.
Several ways. First, to start, I agree with John, minimum wage needs to go to $15 per hour. I also believe, again, in a large public transportation infrastructure building project in this state, putting people physically to work in construction projects. We need to, again, build new car manufacturing plant in this state focused on electric cars and renewable energy. Because right now, renewable energy jobs, there's 3 times as many of them today as there are in oil industry jobs and gas industry jobs in this state. And we need to do more with renewables, putting people employed, building things and making things, especially in our cities, where in some cases, in some of our cities, are suffering not from the unemployment rates that are published, but 20 to 30% unemployment rates.
Well, I think everyone on this stage agrees that we should have a $15 minimum wage. In Australia, the minimum wage is higher than $15 an hour, and Big Macs cost less there. So there's no reason why in America people should be working at poverty wages. We have at Newark Airport workers making $10.10 an hour who are saving our lives. They're inspecting bags for explosives. And yet, our New Jersey Port Authority commissioners won't give them the same $15 an hour that they're making at LaGuardia or Kennedy Airport. That's a shame. I'll make all of our Port Authority commissioners resign until those workers get the $15 an hour they deserve.
Okay, we all agree on the $15 an hour minimum wage, but the question was, where are we going to get the jobs that don't require extensive training? And I think that one of the areas we can get them is the cannabis industry. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry right now that is being taken over by Mexican drug cartels and out-of-state smugglers. Now, if we tax and regulate that industry, remember, every job that you create in that industry is a New Jersey job at $15 an hour. From the seed, to the stem, to the harvest, to the packaging, to the bakery, to the hemp textile. Paterson, New Jersey was once known as the Silk City. Well, hemp as a garment product is a tremendous product and could turn Paterson into the hemp city instead of the Silk City. Now, that's one industry. I would love to have a little more time to talk to you about this because I have a lot of ideas.
You have a plan. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
So basically, this question is going to one of the fundamental issues that we don't talk enough about, but we have been doing here, which is inequality. And so we need to make investments that help address that. For low-skilled jobs, we ought to be investing in our infrastructure to create more opportunities for your warehouses jobs with the direct-to-consumer market. Amazon could be building more here. We could take advantage of that. There are other jobs that are essential for people that are re-entering. So we make investments in smaller businesses because our large and mature businesses don't provide opportunities that are re-entering for people that are re-entering the labor market from prison, and we need to do that as well. And those sorts of investments would help us move that forward.
Okay, I'm going to give you the last question, but I want the audience to know that any questions I didn't get to, that we're going to hold those questions until the general election in November.
And I'll be happy to answer them for you then.
Okay, guys, you're eating into your time. Hold on.
Eating into my time.
What are the specific initiatives you would fund to reform the criminal justice system?
There are several. One is community policing. Community policing has shown around the nation that that is an effective way to both reduce crime and reduce incarceration, and that is the pivotal thing. The other is early diversion, and which is important. I got to talk the first time when I was 6 years old, when I went to the store for the first time, and basically was told how I should conduct myself. Second time was when I was 17. I know that there are many young people that if they had been given, not the talk, but the real opportunity to be diverted from the criminal justice system, their lives would be dramatically different, and we should fund those programs that help to do that, rather than locking up more people, because that has not solved the problem.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the war on drugs. The war on drugs is a war on people. It is a war on people of color. It is a war on minorities. It is a war on poor people. And it is a war that is never going to be won, because when you declare war on your own people, you have declared war on your own people and not a substance. Now, Portugal legalized drugs in every form, and they have had tremendous results. They are not putting people in jail. They're getting more people treatment. The level of addiction has gone down, and they've taken the profit motive out of the hands of drug cartels. This is something that we need to talk seriously about. What we're doing is failing. What we're doing is targeting people for no reason. And you know what? We might not have had the political will to do this 10 years ago, but now that heroin has reached the suburbs, people can finally consider that there's a solution other than jail.
Well, the best way to reform the criminal justice system is to avoid the criminal justice system in the first place. We used to have after the bell programs. The most dangerous time in a child's life when they could get in trouble or cause trouble is after school ends and before their parent or parents come home. I would reinstitute the after the bell program. I also have a recovery school, the only recovery school in the state for children with substance use disorder. It provides a safe haven for these kids who go into rehab and come back to the same people, places, and things where they got in trouble in the first place. So I would expand recovery schools so children can have an opportunity to be sober in an environment where they get peer support and not peer pressure to use again.
Thank you.
So about 2 weeks ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, I might as well call him Confederate General Jeff Sessions, because that's who he's named after, along with the President of the Confederacy. He decided that he wants to double down on the war on drugs. He's fundamentally a racist, and it is what it is. He basically wants to put people of color in prison, and he wants to up the ante on it. I think it's morally and fundamentally wrong. I agree with my colleagues up here. Marijuana should be legalized. Also, no one, under any circumstances, should be in prison for using or possessing any sort of drugs. They should be in treatment, whatever it needs to be, to get an addict off of drugs.
So I would end the war on drugs. We all agree on that. We save money. We tax marijuana. We make money. But let's talk about what it said. The question was about investment for making our communities safer. I believe fundamentally accountability is the most important issue that we could have. Body cameras for all of our police departments is an important step to get accountability. There's another thing I would invest in is civilian complaint review boards. We need to make sure that people have the ability to weigh in on the use of force, not just people on the police departments. And lastly, we have to end private prisons. There should be no profit motive in locking people up.
Thank you. This is the opportunity for everyone to give their closing statements. And so we're going to start with you. You have 2 minutes.
Me, that's John Wisniewski, and I'm a candidate for governor.
That's all?
No. I started, but just because you said you, I wanted just to remind people. So, thank you, first of all, to the NAACP and POP and all the other organizations that have put this together tonight. This is an important part of how we choose the next governor, so that you get to hear what we believe and think. Unfortunately, not all the candidates are here, and that's a problem that's been going on throughout this campaign, because one candidate feels that he doesn't need to tell you what he believes, and one candidate feels like he doesn't need to be part of this process. Well, I'm glad that we're all here so that you get to hear us. This election is about the middle class and about having a governor that's going to be a champion for the middle class, because the middle class has been under siege for too long. And as a governor, I will take the lessons that I have learned as an assemblyman for 21 years. I'll take the lessons that I've learned as a Main Street lawyer, running my own small business, helping people with everyday problems. Because the job of governor is solving problems for the people of the state of New Jersey. And I have a track record of solving those problems, whether it was standing up to our first Goldman Sachs governor, John Corzine, when he wanted to sell the Parkway and the Turnpike, whether it was standing up to legislative leadership that wanted to punish public employees for the mistakes that prior governors had made in the pension and benefit bill that I voted against, whether it was standing up against entrenched special interests that wanted to give $1 billion tax break to the wealthiest New Jerseyans last fall. I have a track record of being somebody that stands up and is not afraid to stand up to the powerful and the special interests of the party bosses. What I'm known best for is standing up to Governor Chris Christie on Bridgegate. Because what we need to do is have a governor that people can believe in, a governor that's accountable to the people, a governor that's not afraid to address people with respect and listen to people with respect. That's how I've conducted myself for 21 years as a member of the Assembly, and that's the kind of lesson and experience I'll take with me to be governor of the state of New Jersey. I'm here tonight because I need your support. We can change the course of New Jersey's government and politics with your help. My name is John Wisniewski, and I'm running for governor.
So my name is Mark Zinna, and I'm running for governor, and this election is about you. And what I'm going to ask is, when you go into the voting booth, vote for who you think will most represent your interests, not who the party bosses are telling you you should be voting for. That's very important. If you want someone to be governor who has been in the state legislature for 20 years and has a deep understanding of how government runs and how it can be fixed, well, perhaps you like Assemblyman Wisniewski here. If you want someone who has been at the forefront of women's issues and environmental issues for 30 years, you may want to vote for Senator Lesniak. If you want someone who calls out on corruption, not afraid of anyone, speaks his mind no matter what he's in front of, you may want my friend Bill Brennan over here. If you want someone with deep analytical skills and understands policy at a very high level, Mr. Johnson over here is your person. That's who you should vote for. I have been in both the executive side and the legislative side of running municipal governments. I'm council president. I've been acting mayor. If I'm the type of candidate, that's what you're looking for, I hope you are, and I would ask you vote for me on June 6th in the primary. Mark Zinner. Thank you. Have a good evening.
I agree with Mark. Every single candidate up here is very well qualified to be the next governor of the state of New Jersey. I think they all deserve a big hand. And I also want to state the person least qualified to be governor is the person who is not here, Phil Murphy. I guess I'm most known for winning an International Human Rights Award for abolishing the death penalty in the state of New Jersey, and I'm awfully proud of that. Abolishing the death penalty in the state of New Jersey? But I'm also proud of the fact that I have ended mass incarceration in New Jersey, that I have been responsible for cleaning up tens of thousands of contaminated sites in New Jersey, that I do have a landmark women's rights case, and that I was in the forefront of the same-sex marriage movement. So my position is that New Jersey needs a champion. New Jersey needs a fighter. I have 1 whole minute to talk even. I have taken on every challenge. I've taken on Exxon. I'm taking on the State House. I've taken on Christie at every single step of the way. New Jersey needs someone who has done it, who has performed it, who has been a champion. I'll be your champion every single day of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I don't know what more I can do. I've devoted my life to making this state and this country and this world a better place. I offer myself as a servant to you. I've been speaking truth to power. I came here and I was very specific when these questions were answered. I don't know if you paid any attention to it, but when somebody asked, what would you do? I said exactly what I would do. I said I would make a county school board system. I said I would end the war on drugs and use the Portugal model. I said that I would incorporate the 2 different terminals at Penn Station and make one to save a lot of money and make the life better. Because if you're going to move the Port Authority bus terminal to 11th Avenue, you're going to make the world harder for people. I said a lot of very specific things, and I have a comprehensive plan to save our pension system without raising taxes. So if you want somebody with large ideas and big ideas and innovative solutions to the problems that we face, then you want me. Because I have not been in the legislature for 20 or 40 or 30 years in any respect, and I don't think it's working down there. If you think you know how it works, then you're obviously mistaken, because I know exactly how it's not working. All of the compromises, all of the leverage, all of the deals, all of the dirt, and all of the money, and all of the leverage is too much, and they've got none of that on me. And it all has to be wiped clean. We need a new slate with this state. We need clean government, we need open government, we need open space and open government. And I'm here to give that to you. I'm here to give that to you, and we at Brennan2017.com don't talk in vague generalities. Very specific and detailed, comprehensive proposals. And you deserve that. It's not just we're going to make things better and make America great again. I'm going to make New Jersey the first state in the country to be renewable energy reliant. I'm going to create a lot of good paying jobs. I'm going to provide affordable housing and take the financial incentive away from the developers and put it in the hands of the people. I'm going to do these things because it is right and it is fair and it is what we need today. More of the same is more of the same, and what we have is not working.
Thank you.
I grew up not far from here. My grandfather was an associate minister of Wells Cathedral. I love this state and this community. I am the fourth generation of my family to be here, and I'm raising the fifth. And I am tired of the same old, same old. That's why I'm the only candidate to put forward a specific ethics proposal, because the government right now is not a government for us. It's a government for insiders. And insiders are trying to pick the next governor. And it's important that you're here, and it's important that you vote and you bring your friends and get out there, because that is the only way to combat organized money. That's organized people. And the work that POP does and the work that the NAACP does is vital to that. And you need to keep fighting, all of us do. If you know my records, you know that in Florida, I went to court to get more than 600,000 formerly incarcerated people back on the voting rolls, because it's that essential. I helped get 20,000 people back on the rolls in Florida, and again in Colorado. I helped get more than 30,000 people back on the rolls. I can see when people are being deprived of their rights, whether or not it's in the criminal justice system, where I've worked in the state to have a statewide body cam policy put in place, where I've worked in the state to make sure that implicit bias training was given to all law enforcement within the state. There is more that needs to be done. I am convinced of that. I am not one of these Democrats who believes that you have to choose between economic justice on the one hand and dignity for all of us. They go hand in hand. It means nothing if you have a great job, but you cannot drive down the highway because you look a certain way. It means nothing if someone is prepared to treat you in the right way and say you're great, you're fine, you're my friend, but you can't keep a roof over your head. My vision of a society and my vision of the governorship is to address both of these things and make sure that we are moving forward together, and together, all of us can make a difference in the state. Join me.
I'm not doing a closing statement. I just want to have everybody thank you all for coming to this illustrious building. I love Essex, and I hope you love Essex too. I'm sorry. We do have Larry Ham. Okay, Larry, you want to come up and you're going to give closing. He's going to do an overview. Come on, Larry.
Power to the people. Let me be brief. I'm not giving an overview. I was just asked to give some closing remarks, and they will be brief. First of all, let us give the candidates that saw fit to be in our presence tonight to present themselves to us. I think it shows how much they think of us and how important your vote is. And next, let us give a hand to the My Vote is Power coalition that put on this forum tonight. Organizations that are a part of it, the Prince Hall Masons and the Grand Master Shelton Prescott, is he here? Yeah. Give him a hand. Gregory, the president of the Newark branch of the NAACP. The Urban League is here. Where's the Urban League? Give a hand. There's the director, the executive director of the Urban League. The Essex County Student Government Association. Give them a hand. And please give a hand to the members of the People's Organization for Progress who are here today. Power to the people. Brothers and sisters, in 14 days, we will have the primary election, and phase 1 will be over. In 14 days, the Democrats of this state will choose who their standard bearer will be to go into the general election. This is probably the most serious gubernatorial election we have had in many years. And I don't know if you see it the way I see it, but here's how I see it. That this gubernatorial race, this gubernatorial election, who will be the next governor of the state of New Jersey, is directly tied to the current political crisis in the United States of America. We cannot fail in our duty to exercise our right to vote and to prevent the tidal wave of the right-wing reaction that has swept over this country to sweep another Republican governor into office. We cannot do that. It is incumbent upon us this summer to engage in massive voter registration. It is incumbent upon us to engage with perhaps those who are even closest to us, our family members and friends, to engage with them in non-antagonistic struggle to overcome whatever negative attitudes they have about voting in this election. No one can stay home in November. We must engage over the next 90 or so, 90 to 100 days, massive voter registration. Already the People's Organization for Progress is on the corner of Broad Market every Saturday. But this is not our task alone. This is the task of all organizations that present themselves as fighters for our community. We should be on every corner in this community doing voter registration. In every school, and in every church, and in every bar, and in every laundromat, in every bodega, in every grocery store, in every public space, we must have voter registration forms there, and we must do what we can to register our people. We must do it. And then, after that, we must engage in voter education. We must continue the work of this forum today. We need forums like this all around the state. Every branch of the NAACP, every branch of the People's Organization for Progress, every chapter of the Prince Hall Masons and the Eastern Star, every organization of the Urban League, student organizations. We must be educating people about the important issues and why it is we must go to the polls in November. And then when November gets here, we must engage in the most intense voter mobilization possible. And not only for the office of governor, but for every office on the ballot. We must mobilize people and have them vote from governor to state senator to assembly person to freeholders, county executives, city council people, all the way down to the dog catcher if we elect him to. We must engage in massive voter mobilization. But our work is not over in November. This is just the beginning. This is the prelude. This is the dress rehearsal for what we need to do in 2018. We need to push back and put in a Democratic majority in Washington, D.C. in 2018. And what that does is position our troops and position our armaments so that we can have victory in 2020 and remove that criminal regime that is in the White House now. Remove them all. So it's very intense, brothers and sisters, for our children. I mean, look at what is happening now. Look at the cuts. $30 million in cuts that will affect the city of Newark alone. Breaking all the promises they made. Now they're going to cut Medicaid and Social Security. They're going to make draconian cuts to the education budget. These cuts in healthcare services, people will die. But they don't care. They don't care about the people because they are a bunch of kleptocrats who only care about lining their pockets and enriching themselves. That's what's going on. And they're attempting to roll back 75 years of social progress. Roll back civil rights. Roll back women's rights. Roll back labor rights. They don't want to stop there. They want to roll back the New Deal. But we should be here to tell them we are not going back without a fight. We're going to fight for every inch of social progress that we have made over the last 75 years. How are you people?
All right, ready to go? Ready to go.
So, would you actually, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hello, my name is Jeff. I'm with Citizens of Media TV. Bill Brennan invited me tonight.
Okay.
And you're a remarkable speaker. It was really enjoyable listening to you.
Thank you.
I actually have a question for you, though. I wish that this speech was given 3 months ago, because I feel like it's critical for people to get to know the possible candidates, not the candidates that, the very limited choices at that point.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just curious to hear, is this something that's ongoing and I've just missed that, or is that sort of...
This is definitely ongoing. The My Vote is Power Coalition has been in existence, I believe, since 2015, and has had candidate forums like this for the past almost 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. But we must do more of this, and yes, it's unfortunate that it wasn't more intense, several years ago, but it is what it is, and we have to fight as hard as we can now. And I think the outcome in November is going to be positive, but the work doesn't stop there. 2018 congressional races, we got to weigh in on those. And in 2020, we definitely got to get rid of that regime that's in Washington, D.C.
So just one more question. Do you think that there may be, not just with you, but all around the country, too much of an emphasis on the general, people get involved during the general and not enough during the primary? Because I personally feel a very big sense of urgency during the primaries.
Right. No, we need to be more involved in the primary elections, no doubt about it. But it's a fact of American life that voter turnout is low in primaries. It should be high. It is low. We got to do more to make it higher.
But I feel like that kind of speech during the primaries is what's going to inspire people to do.
Right. And we got to bring people back out for the general election in November. So all elections are important. All of them.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It was nice listening to you.
All right.
See you later.
All right.
Darling.
Oh my God, man.
How you doing, man?
Good. One day I'll learn to speak just like you.
Oh, come on, man.
Larry, he said, I'm going to believe.
space to see people in the back. That's all.
Nice to meet you, AKM. Pleasure.
I work for you.
Great. Oh, thank you. I need the help.
Let me give you a card.
All right, so we're in the Brennan Spin Room. Spin away.
The form was a little limiting.
Actually, hold on a minute.
I want to see if there's any other people I want to talk to.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much. You put in a great form. I hope I didn't go over too often.
No, I like this stuff.
Oh, thank you.
It's a regular person.
I'm trying. Would you?
Oh, yeah, no.
I got to be impartial.
Sure.
You want people to work in your campaign?
Yes. I mean,
email me because I have to open it for everybody.
But email me.
I give them.
I haven't done all the tests. I've been to schools. I've got 17.
You hold it out. I had to sweat them. Yeah, well, you know, what we're going to do, we're going to do some video.
Excuse me, are you Trip?
Hey, Trip, yeah. Hey, Jeff. I've heard your name. Yeah, great to see you again. I know I saw you a couple times, including at that Y'all Revolution thing we did.
Right. Yeah. Would you mind if I ask you a question?
I don't know if I'm like the best on the record person. Okay. To be quite honest with you.
Well, Rachel told me that there's an Our Revolution event coming up that maybe I'll see you at.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you'll go fly. Good. I'll look forward to talking to you.
Hey, Susanna, how you doing? How's it going? Good. How's everything? So we're in the Zinna Spin Room, so spin away.
We're in the Zinna Spin Room. We're here in Essex County tonight. We had a great debate and conversation about important issues, and there were 5 candidates here, of which all 5, as far as I'm concerned, are very qualified to be governor of this state. I want people to vote for me, Mark Zinna. The one guy who's not qualified is the one the party bosses have chosen. He's another Goldman Sachs billionaire. I am urging the voters, when they vote, to not listen to what they're told to do, but instead go out there and vote for the candidate they believe in. One of the 5 of us that was here tonight, and happy voting. Don't forget to vote.
Do you think that enough people actually know more than just Phil Murphy? Well, let me put that another way. Do you think that he's not just bought, people say bought, the party bosses, choosing the counties and all that, but simply the awareness because he can afford the television commercials. So,
well, I think the party bosses and Murphy are very cynical in that they're counting on the people not to pay attention, and they're trying to slip one by all of us. The Star-Ledger today had an article. They were talking about an opinion piece about how the other candidates, myself included, are slandering Murphy for writing all the checks. But we're not slandering anything. We're using public information that's available, that he has written checks to all the county bosses, and the bosses are counting on the fact that the people aren't paying attention, and they're trying to slip this billionaire in by the back door.
it is a reasonable, I forget the term, reasonable theory that all the counties going to him may be somewhat related to the money that they're getting from the Murphy campaign.
Oh, it's all about the cash. We have county bosses who were supporting other candidates. Many of them were supporting Sweeney, Senate President Sweeney. Some were supporting Mayor Fulop of Jersey City, 2 great guys, but they didn't write checks that were big enough. When Murphy came along and wrote checks 2, 3, 4 times the size of their checks, all of a sudden allegiances were switched overnight, and a lot of the bosses would like us to think that's just a wild coincidence and that the heaven rises and sets on Mr. Murphy. And it's wrong. It's not. It's endemic of what's wrong with our state, and we need to focus on the candidates that are right for the state, not the ones with the most amount of cash.
All right, last question. Obviously, what do you think the likeliness that Phil Murphy is simply going to win because he has so much money?
Look, that's the elephant in the room, and all of us.
And part of it's like, is all of this stuff quixotic? I mean.
No, not really.
I mean the fact of having a debate to begin with and so on.
No, I think it's important to get the message out there, because if Phil Murphy winds up being the nominee, the Democrats could wind up losing the election in November to one of the Republicans that are running. We all thought it was impossible for Trump to beat Hillary Clinton. Well, guess what? Hillary Clinton lost. All the Democratic brain trust people were 100% wrong. They made assumptions, and they're making the same bad assumption about Murphy now.
You're suggesting that Democratic Party running Hillary, which I hadn't really thought of the connection this way, an potentially unlikable candidate who the more they talk, the more they're less, and that's going to be the same as Hillary versus Trump.
Yeah, I think it's a huge risk here. We're doing the same playbook, and the Democratic leadership have not learned from their mistakes.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that connection. Thank you. Wish you luck in the best last couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll talk sometime soon. Yeah, see ya.
Nice job. You too. Usually we get to kibitz a bit, but not tonight.
And she's got something to tell you about how to read the question.
You want to spin for your boss? What was that? You want to spin for your boss? Download right after now. Yeah. I'm going live. You gotta turn it off at some point too.
All right, I guess I'm just turn it off. All right, so I think that's it. Nothing really to say. We'll see what happens in the last couple of weeks. Will Murphy win for his money? Will something dramatic happen to change things? We'll see. Good night. Thanks for being with us.